Here are specific instructions on how to correctly install the Grizzly Screw-Splice fastener. Prior to installation, ensure that the power is switched off and the conveyor is locked out to avoid accidental startup. Locate the area of the belt to be spliced and securely clamp both sides using ASGCO safeguard belt clamps. ASGCO recommends installing the Grizzly Screw-Splice on a 0.4-inch bias. For example, a belt width of 30 inches would require a 12-inch bias. To establish this reference line, you will first need to find the center line of the belt by marking 4 points down the middle of the belt that are equal distance from the belt's edge, and connect these points with a chalk line. Second, using a framing square, draw a line that is square to the established center line at the desired cut point. Third, measure the proper bias amount from one end of the square line along the belt's edge and mark that point on the belt. Draw the bias line to connect this point to the square line across the belt's width. Use your ASGCO Magnum rubber belt cutter to cut a long bias line. Repeat the measurement and cut process on other side of the belt to be spliced. Using the ASGCO Grizzly skiving tool, skive the top cover of the belt to 1/16 of an inch on both sides. Use multiple passes to achieve the desired depth and width to recess the splice. This is required when using belt scrapers. The width will be shorter on the belt that is installed first due to the spacers, side A. Belts with thicker bottom covers should be recessed as well. Note that it is helpful to chamfer the leading edges of both sides of the belt to allow the Grizzly Screw-Splice to slide into place. It is also recommended to chamfer the top cover of the belt on both sides. Using a utility knife, remove a small amount of material on the edge being inserted into the splice as well as the top cover at a 45-degree angle. Slide the Grizzly Screw-Splice over the first piece of belt until the edge of belt contacts the spacers, shown in red, in the middle of splice. Leave spacers in place until you are ready for the installation of the second side of belt. Using a clutch screw gun or impact driver with bits applied, secure the included screws through the Grizzly Screw-Splice in the order indicated. Tighten each screw to recess the surface of the splice by approximately 1/16 of an inch. Be careful not to over-tighten the screws. Install the center screw, shown in green, first in row A. Then install the screws in the outermost holes of the fastener, shown in yellow. Next, install the screws between the first and second installed screws, shown in blue. Continue centering the screws between the last two installed, making your way back and forth across the belt. Once all the screws in row A are installed, move to row B using the same sequence, starting in the middle and centering until all the screws on that side of the fastener are installed. Continue pattern to additional rows if applicable. Remove the screws and spacers from the middle row. Save the screws to install later. Slide the other side of the belt, side B, into the fastener, butting both ends of the belt together. Install the screws for this side in the same sequence, leaving the middlemost row of screws, the spacer row, for last. Ensure all screws are tightened properly and recessed 1/16 inch from the surface of the splice. It is recommended to trim belt edge just outside of the splice as shown to prevent contact between the splice and conveyor structure. Installation is now complete.